Shabbat Shalom, good morning. Pages 74 and 75. 74 and 75. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. La 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 la. Page 75, please join with me. May the one whose spirit is with us in every righteous deed be with all who work for the good of humanity and bear the burdens of others, who give bread to the hungry, who clothe the naked, and take the friendless into their homes. May the work of their hands endure, and may the seed they sow bring abundant harvest. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. Your turn. Into the microphone, please.
Can you hear me? Okay, good. Shabbat. What?
I'm teasing you. You need a step stool back.
We can see you too.
Sorry. So just because I'm vertically challenged, I don't think I should be challenged. But anyway, Shabbat Shalom. Good morning. Boker Tov. Any which way, I'm Esther Levine Brill. I am Vice President of the Congregation, which you all probably know already. And I see that I don't have to ask, is there any new members here? Because I recognize everybody. And I know you're all vaccinated too. So that's even better. Anyway.
You're not a new member.
I think I have you though down. Yes, you came last week, yes. Right? Didn't you come at the bagel breakfast?
Still
I can't remember. Yes, you're right. I can't quite remember your name right now, but I know I recognize you because I went around last week at the bagel breakfast checking everybody. I'm telling everybody I was the COVID czar. Anyway, welcome. Please turn off your cell phone or on vibrate only. Few announcements in terms of where everything is. The restrooms are in the back and in the rear. I'm supposed to point. Okay, the fire extinguishers are located at the rear also, sort of by where the where we keep our not boxers, prayer books, the siddurim. Okay, and also we have a AED, a defibrillator there as well. First aid blood control kits, hopefully we'll never need any of these things, are marked and located here, and the kitchen and in the library. The library is to the left over there. Okay. The double doors where you entered are also the normal exit doors. Please don't use, except in an emergency, any other exit doors. Otherwise, we need to reset the whole system and it becomes a problem. The doors also at 10 o'clock when we start the service are locked for security reasons. So if you need to leave before the end of services, please notify or go over to one of our shomerim, which is Gary and Sid. But Gary's back there. Okay, if the power goes out, emergency lighting should immediately turn on for your safety, and you will receive further instruction from your temple leadership, Gloria. In the event of God forbid, in the event of a potentially threatening situation, you may direct it to move into our kitchen, which we consider our safe room. Okay, and that's back there. Okay, we did that again. I don't have to ask if there's any new members. Major announcements, which are taken from the current month's shofar, which you could see on our website in the shofar. which is on our website anyway. Okay, today is
It's the 11th.
the 11th, okay, so that's today. There's Monday, June 13th at 10 a.m. There will be Parshat HaShavua, the portion of the week, will be on Zoom, as it always is. We have a Friday night Shabbat service on June 17th at 7 p.m.
No, we don't.
No, we don't?
No, we don't.
No, we don't.
Why isn't it crossed out here? You added your thing. Sorry. I don't know. Okay, forget that. But what we do have is we do have Torah study on June 18th and June 25th. But on June 23rd, and it's not on the sheets that you get outside there, but it is on our calendar online, is June 23rd. There's going to be a rabbi's workshop on dealing with death and dying and dealing with questions about it. And that can be here at 2 p.m., but also on Zoom. So we hope.
Just on Zoom.
Just on Zoom?
Just on Zoom.
Oh, okay. Just on Zoom. What do I know? I only, read things.
We
Okay.
should go back and start all over.
I guess, right, okay. So starting, okay. Sunday, Saturday, July 2nd, there's Torah study on Zoom. Sunday, July 3rd is a bagel breakfast, but you must RSVP. I think we're RSVP closed by the 27th, and on that day, we're going to be celebrating Gloria Clancy's anniversary, and I'm not supposed to say, but my husband's birthday. But we will also be having at 9:30 the music of our own Michael Gerben, who's really very enjoyable to listen to. So make sure you come early so you can listen to Michael Gerben's music playing. What's the matter? You're looking, Michael, like I'm saying the wrong thing? Did you just give me the finger? Oh, I didn't speak into it. See, thank you for reminding me. What I was saying, especially for Michael, for all the audience, and I'm even standing on my tiptoes, which is very hard because I think I have a broken toe, but never mind that. That on 9:30 on Bagel Breakfast, we have the honor of hearing very talented Michael Gerben playing on the piano, and he's really something to listen to. Any which way. Wednesday, July 6th is book club. That's usually on Wednesdays. And then on Friday, there is a Sisterhood Shabbat. Friday, July 8th, we're having a Sisterhood Shabbat at Oneg. It will be a special Oneg, and they're honoring their past treasurer. I'm blocking her name, but you could. It's on the website. Okay. And I'm not going to give you any more because you're not going to remember anyway. But you can pick up a sheet that says it. Again, it doesn't have the June 23rd event, and it does have a Friday Shabbat services that we're not having. So, any which way. Everybody enjoy the service, and Shabbat Shalom, and thank you. Anybody ever have any announcements you need to make?
Thank you, Esther.
You're welcome. Thank you, Rabbi.
And even though there won't be a service here on June 17th, it still will be Shabbat. So, in case anyone was wondering. We continue on page 78. Page 78. Eloheinu shamash natata bi tahorahi. My God, the soul that you have given me is a pure one. You created it, you shaped it, you breathed it into me, and you protect it within me. For as long as my soul is within me, I offer thanks to you, Adonai, my God. You are the God of my ancestors, the source of all creation, and the sovereign of all souls. Praised are you, Adonai, in your hand is every living soul, and the breath of humankind. Baruch atah Adonai, asher biyado nefesh kol chai, Beruach kol basar ish. As our morning blessings continue, I invite you to turn to page 85. Page 85. And responsively, this statement of our Jewish faith by the French philosopher Edmund Flagg. I am a Jew because the faith of Israel demands no abdication of my mind. I am a Jew because the faith of Israel requires all the devotion of my heart. I am a Jew because in every place where suffering weeps, the Jew weeps.
I am a Jew because every time Israel cries out, the Jew weeps.
I am a Jew because the word of Israel is the oldest and the newest.
I am a Jew because Israel's promise is the newest promise.
I am a Jew because for Israel the world is not completed, we are completing it.
I am a Jew because for Israel humanity is not created, we are creating it.
I am a Jew because Israel places humanity in its unity above the nations and above Israel itself.
I am a Jew because of humanity, the image of divine unity. Israel places the unity of
Page 96. Psalm 92 for the Shabbat day. Mizmor shir liyom haShabbat, tov lehodot la'Adonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, lezamer l'shimcha elyon. Mizmor shir liyom haShabbat, tov lehodot la'Adonai, ולזמר לשמך עליון, לזמר לשמך עליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך, ואמונתך בלילות. עלי עשור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון בכינור. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, לזמר לשמך עליון. כי שימחתני אדוני בפועלך, במעשה ידיך ארנן. מה גדלו מעשיך אדוני מאוד, עמקו מחשבותיך. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, לזמר לשמך עליון. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, לזמר לשמך עליון. And we haven't chanted Ashrei in a while, so and I see that there's quite a number of people here who have the traditional background, so you may be more familiar with the words of the Psalm 145. It is an acrostic following the Hebrew alphabet. The melody is very simple, and usually we antiphonally respond, chanting, alternating the service leader, the worship leader, and the congregation, but I figured we will do all of it together again to remind those of you who may not have seen this psalm in a while. Ashrei yoshvei veitecha, od yehlalucha selah, Ashrei ha'am shekacha lo, Ashrei ha'am she'Adonai Elohav, Tila leDavid. The melody stays the same. You can fit the words in. Aromimcha Elohai HaMelech, Va'avarcha Shimcha Leolam Va'ed, Bechol Yom Avarcheka, Va'alala Shimcha Leolam Va'ed. Gadol Adonai Umhulal Meod, Veligdulato Ein Cheker. Dor ledor yishavach ma'asecha, ugvurotecha yagidu. Hadar kevod hodecha, v'divrei niflotecha asicha, ve'ezuz norotecha yomeru, ugdulatcha asaprena. Zecherav tuvcha yabiyu, v'tzidchatcha yiranenu. Chanun v'rachum Adonai, erech apayim ugdol chosed. Tov Adonai lakol, v'rachamav al kol ma'asav. Yoducha Adonai kol ma'asecha, v'chasidecha yevarchucha. Kevod malchutcha yomeru, ugvuratcha yedaberu. Lehodia livnei ha'adam givurotav, uchvod hadar malchutoho. Malchutcha malchut kol olamim, umemshaltecha bechol dor vador. Somech Adonai lechol hanoflihim, v'zokef lechol hakfufihim. Einei chol elecha yesaberu, v'ata noten lahem et ochlam beito. Poteach et yadecha, umasbia lechol chai ratzon. Tzadik Adonai lechol drachav, v'chasida bechol ma'asav. Karov Adonai lechol korav, lechol asher yikrauhu ve'emet. Retzon yireyav yeyaseh, ve'et shavatam yishma v'yoshiem. Shomer Adonai et kol ohavav, ve'et kol harshaim yashmid. Tehilat Adonai yedaber pihi, vivarech kol basar shem chadsho leolam va'ed. Va'anachnu nevarech ya, me'ata ve'ad olam. Hallelujah. Page 106, 106. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabah, b'yalma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'cha hayechon uv'yohomechon, uv'chayedcho beit Yisrael, bahagala, uv'izmahan kariv, v'imeru, amen. Yehei shmei rabah mivorach, le'olam ulol me'omaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal, shmei d'kudsha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shihirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da mihiran b'yalma, v'imeru. Amen. Our call to worship on page 108. I invite you to please rise if you are comfortable in doing so. Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam va'ed. 110. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvorei choshech, oseh shalom uvorei et hakol, hameir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha berachamim, uvtuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reishit. Marabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chochma asita mala ha'aretz kinyanecha, titbarach Adonai Eloheinu al shevach ma'aseh yadecha, ve'al me'orei or she'asita yefa'arucha sela, or chadash al Tzion ta'ir, v'nizkechu lanu mehera la'oro, Baruch ata Adonai, yotzer hama'orot. Page 113, together in the middle of the page. Love your neighbor as yourself, you said. And light blinded we saw that inner and outer worlds are one as you are one. You spoke and we wrote, we reached for you.
Your light moved before us as we climbed, fell back, and climbed again. Your sign
Baruch ata Adonai, habocher ba'amo Yisrael b'ahava. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai echad. You may be seated. The words of Deuteronomy, beginning on page 116. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol vavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shiftecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha b'derech uv'shachbecha uv'kumecha u'kshartam leyot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'isharecha leman tiskeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'item kedoshim leloechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liyot lachem Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem emet. Page 121, responsively in the middle of page 121. The eternal truth is that you alone are God and there is none else. Let them beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. You shall not hate your brother or your sister in your heart. Why do you crush my people and oppress the poor, asks God. We know that the Eternal One defends the poor and upholds the rights of the needy. Praise to God Most High. Blessed is God. Yam bam 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 bam. Yam ba da da dum 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 da. Ya la 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 la. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osefele, nora tehilot osefele. שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים לשמחה על שפת הים יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Sur Yisrael, Kuma be'ezrat Yisrael, Ufdechinu mecha Yehuda ve'Yisrael. Go aleinu Adonai tzevahot shemo Kedosh Yisrael. Baruch ata Adonai Gal Yisrael. Beginning on page 124, our tefillah, Amidah Shmoneh Esrei, the central part of our worship service. We'll join together in Hebrew, chanting together the first several pages through Kedushah. The ark will be open. I invite you to rise if you are comfortable in doing so again, and we'll join in chanting together, again beginning page 124. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei HaKol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo v'Yahava, Melech Ozer Moshiach u'Magen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Bezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechaye hakol atah Rav lehoshia. Morid hatal, Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim. Somech noflim v'rofei cholim, Umatir asurim, Umkaye munato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha bal giburot, Umidaho melach, Melech memit umkaye, Umatmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atala hachayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai mechayei hakol. Nekadesh et shimcha ba'olam, keshem shemakdishim oto b'shmei maro, kakatuv al yad neviyecha, V'kara zeh zeh ve'amar, Kadosh, 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 Adonai tzevahot, Meloch ol haaretz, kevodo. Adir, adirenu, Adonai, Adonenu, ma'adir shimcha b'chol haaretz, Baruch kevod Adonai, Mimkomo. Echadu Eloheinu, Hu Avinu Hu Malkeinu, Hu Moshienu v'Hu Yashmienu, Berachamav le'einei kol chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Yimloch Adonai le'olam, Elohai yichzion, Ledor vador, Hallelujah. Ledor vador nagid godlecha, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נהקדיש. ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. Let's be seated. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. Page 134. Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, our God and God of our ancestors. Be pleased with our rest, sanctify us with your mitzvot, grant us a share in your Torah. Satisfy us with your goodness and gladden us with your salvation. Purify our hearts to serve you in truth. In your gracious love, Adonai our God, grant us your holy Shabbat as a heritage. May Israel, who sanctifies your name, rest on Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai, who sanctifies the Shabbat. Baruch ata Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. 137 in the middle of the page. On this holy Shabbat, may we draw nearer to life, to peace, and to joy. May we find true rest, holiness in our deeds, worth in our study of Torah. Let us feed on the love of goodness. Let us drink from the love of goodness. Retain our thirst for excess and cleanse our hearts to serve life well. On this holy Shabbat, may we draw nearer in life, in peace, and in joy. Baruch ata Adonai, she'otcha levadcha b'yira na'avod. And this interpretation of the prayer of thanksgiving, Modim anachnu lach, page 139, for the expanding grandeur of creation, worlds known and unknown, galaxies beyond galaxies, filling us with awe, challenging our imaginations, Modim anachnu lach. For this fragile planet Earth, its times and tides, its sunsets and seasons, Modim anachnu lach. For the joys of human life, its wonders and surprises, its hopes and achievements, Modim anachnu lach. For human community, our common past and future hope, our oneness transcending all separation, our capacity to work for peace and justice, even in the midst of hostility and oppression, Modim anachnu lach. For high hopes and noble causes, for faith without fanaticism, for understanding of views not shared, Modim anachnu lach. For all who have labored and suffered for a fairer world, those who have lived and those who have died, so that others might live in dignity and freedom, Modim anachnu lach. for human liberties and sacred rights, for opportunities to change and grow, to affirm and choose. Modim anachnu lach. We pray that we may live not by our fears, but by our hopes, not by our words, but by our deeds. Blessed are you, Adonai, your name is goodness. You are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch ata Adonai, hatov shimcha, ulecha na'eh lehodot. We pray silently through page 142. This rendition of the Sim Shalom, Prayer for Peace, the text of which is on page 140, is performed by cantor Lizzie Weiss of Los Angeles, but the composer is a friend of mine by the name of Michael Isaacson, who has been composing sacred Jewish music since the 1960s and 70s. My guess is that most of us had not heard this version of Sim Shalom, of the Prayer for Peace. But I'll clue you in as to why I wanted to include a rendition of the sacred liturgy by Michael Isaacson. So be patient. In a few moments I'll tell you why I chose it.
Sim Shalom, Tova uvracha ba'olam, Chaim v'chesed, v'rachamim aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael amecha. Adonai Eloheinu, Torah Chaim ve'ahavat chesed, utzedaka uveracha verachamim ve'chayim ve'shalom. Besed shalom ufanasa tova nisafer v'nikater lefanecha anachnu v'chol amcha bet Yisrael לחיים טובים ולשלום ברוך אתה אדוני עושה השלום.
So, a story. The first Saturday morning in June of 1975 was the day that I was ordained a rabbi in Cincinnati, Ohio, at the Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion. I had been called to serve as an assistant rabbi back at my home congregation in Cleveland. So a few days after the ceremony in Cincinnati, the family and friends, we all returned back to Cleveland. And in those days, in the Cleveland Reform Jewish community, all of the Reform temples, of which there were 6 or 7, joined together over the summer, June, July, August, and rotated around in a single Friday night or Saturday morning service, Friday night and Saturday morning service, rotating around amongst the various sanctuaries of the congregations. And the deal was that the rabbi, cantor, musical soloist, whatever it was, from different congregations would lead services in a different synagogue, in a different sanctuary. So congregations would get to see all of the other clergy. The second Friday night, Saturday morning, I forget which it was, Friday night or Saturday morning, of June 1975, was the first time that I had been invited to lead the services as a full ordained rabbi. I had done so as a student and as an intern, but that weekend was the first time that I could do so as an ordained rabbi. And the service took place in what is now known as Congregation Tifereth Israel in Cleveland. Then it was known simply as Silver's Temple. The Clevelanders who may be listening in, I don't see anybody at Clevelander who's here right now in the sanctuary here, but you may know the name of Rabbi Abba Hillel Silver, who was the distinguished senior rabbi of the temple in Cleveland, and then his son, Daniel Jeremy Silver, continued on after him. But again, the pattern was that a different rabbi would lead the service along with a musical or cantorial assistant not in your home congregation. So I was invited to lead services at, quote unquote, Silver's Temple, the temple, Tifereth Israel, the first weekend after my ordination. The musical director who was working with me on that Friday night or Saturday morning was the aforementioned Michael Isaacson, who, recognizing the importance of the moment for me, that this was my first Shabbat service to lead officially as a rabbi. At this point in the service, after the silent prayer, Michael stood up from the piano. I forget if it was a piano or an organ, but he stood up and said, "Pardon me, Rabbi, but I think it's very important for the congregation representing the entire Reform community of metropolitan Cleveland to welcome and bless you on this your first occasion in leading us in worship as a rabbi. Caught me by surprise, but he then invited the entire worshiping congregation to rise at that point and recite the priestly blessing to me. It is the blessing that we're going to talk about in the Torah portion today, as well as some few other comments that I will be mentioning. But remembering that event, that's how many years ago now? In 1975, I thought it was especially meaningful for me and to tell you the story also of my connection to a marvelous composer of Jewish liturgical music by the name of Michael Isaacson. So with that story in mind and anticipating reading in the Torah the priestly benediction as it comes in our Torah portion, we'll continue on page 244. 244, Mr. Benish, as usual, I invite you to assist me. 244. Ein kamocha ba'Elohim Adonai, v'ein kema'asecha, malchutecha malchut kol olamim, umemshaltecha b'chol dor v'hador. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch, Leolam vahed, Adonai oz le'amo yitein, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom, av harachahamim, heitiva v'rtzonecha et Zion, tivne chomot Yerushalayim, tivne chomot Yerushalayim, ki v'cha levad batachnu, Melech el ram v'nisa, Adon olamim. Please rise. There you are, sir. Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, udevar Adonai, Mirushalayim. In this scroll is the secret of our people's life from Sinai until now. Its teaching is love and justice, goodness and hope. Freedom is its gift to all who treasure it. Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah. Le'amo Yisrael. B'kedushato, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo, Gadlul Adonai iti, Uneramim Shemo Yachdav, Lecha Adonai hagedula v'hagevura v'hatiferet v'hanetzach v'hahod ki chol b'shamayim u'va'aretz chol b'shamayim u'va'aretz lecha Adonai mamlacha V'mihit nahaseh lechol rosh. Romemu, Romemu, Adonai Eloheinu, V'hishtachavu, V'hishtachavu, Lehar Kodsho, Lehar Kodsho. Romemu, Romemu, Adonai Eloheinu, v'hishtachavu, v'hishtachavu, lehar kodsho, ki kadosh, ki kadosh, ki kadosh, Adonai Eloheinu. You always put it over, and I always just take on the other side of the lab.
Sorry.
Please be seated.
It's just heavy.
I know. I know. You want to do the brachas or?
Yeah.
Okay. So the Torah portion is Naso, now the second parsha in the fourth book of the Torah, in the book of Bamidbar, known in Hebrew Bamidbar as in the wilderness. In English it's referred to as Numbers. It begins with a census. And there are two sections of this particular Torah portion which I wish to read and to comment upon. There are other very interesting and challenging chapters as well. But first is the notion of the Nazir, the Nazarite, not the Nazarene, but the Nazarite, the one who makes an oath, in a special oath of a particular lifestyle, making that oath to God. It can be male or female. It's one of the few times in the Torah when women are invited to make the same type of religious practice that men are encouraged to voluntarily participate in. The most famous example is actually in the Haftarah portion, although the conditions are a little bit different, but it's the story of Samson that you might remember, or if you want to picture it, that's Victor Mature in the movie, right? Okay, of Samson and Delilah. But again, it's an entirely different condition because God chooses Samson to be the Nazarite, as opposed to here in the Torah, where it's a voluntary experience, and it's a temporary, has a finite timeline. You can choose to be a Nazarite, a Nazir, for a specific period of time of your own volition. There is a ritual by which you come back into the community and participate fully according to the regular customs of the community rather than of the Nazarite conditions. But it is at your one individual's own choice and decision. The second section that we'll be reading is the very familiar, as I was alluding to earlier, the very familiar priestly benediction, and we'll comment further upon those words as well.
Baruch Hu Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Varach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. V'daber Adonai el Moshe lemor. Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, Daber el bnei Yisrael v'amarta aleihem. Moses, speak to the children of Israel and say to them, Ish o isha ki yafli limdor neder nazir lahazir ladonai. If some individual, man or woman, chooses to make an offering vow, that's not a sacrifice, but a verbal vow of the Nazarite vow, to be a Nazir for God's sake, miyayin v'shecher yazir, one swears off or abstains from wine or any intoxicating liquor. Chometz yayin v'chometz shechar lo yishteh, he or she may not drink of any wine or any leavened product that might be associated with the wine. V'chol mishrat anavim lo yishteh, and that extends to any product of the grapes. V'anavim lachim v'veishim lo ye'echel kol yemei nizro, that no product from the grapes, whether they are still wet or whether they are dry, no product of grapes shall be eaten at all. That's the origin of one of the rabbinic halachic interpretations to place a fence around the Torah is the literal phrase, to protect the very words of the Torah and to protect one who might be seen as breaking those rules. So in other words, to make sure that someone who publicly had made this Nazirite vow, but to make sure that someone walking past sees them eating or drinking something that came from the grapes, and they think, oh, wait a minute, he's defiling his vow. So therefore, he or she was totally forbidden to participate or to eat or to drink anything from grapes, even though they may not be intoxicating at the state in which they were being consumed. Migefen hayayin michartsanim va'ad zag lo yeachel. Nothing from the wine in any stages of its processing shall be consumed. Mikol yemei neder nizro, throughout the days of his or her vow as a Nazirite. Ta'ar lo ya'avor al rosho. No razor shall come close to his or her head. Ad milot hayamim asher yazir ladonai kodesh yihiyeh gedal peras sa'ar rosho. Throughout all the days of his or her vow of being a Nazirite, all of the hair on one's head shall be considered kodesh, shall be considered consecrated. That could be, again, holy or taboo. Kol yemei haziro ladonai al nefesh meit lo yavo. Throughout all the days of serving as a Nazirite or observing the Nazirite's vow, he or she may not come into the presence of any corpse. Lo yavo la'aviv u'imo la'achiv u'la'achoto. That includes even approaching into the same proximity as the death of a father or a mother, a brother or a sister. Lo yitameh lahem b'motam. He or she shall not be defiled by coming before their dead corpse. Ki nezer Elohav al rosho, for the vow for God has been placed on his head or her head. Kol yemei nizro kodesh hu ladonai. He or she is considered kodesh, consecrated unto Adonai. V'chi yamut meit alav befeta pitom v'tamei rosh nizro v'galach rosho biyom taharato. If indeed unintentionally, accidentally, the Nazir comes into the presence of a dead person or anything that would defile or make his or her head, but they mean the entire the body and the soul, that would defile or make impure the one who is a Nazirite, then must immediately participate in a ceremony of tahara, of ritual cleansing, and the restrictions go on. If you remember the story of Samson again, Samson lost his strength as a Nazir because Delilah shaved his head and made him drink, right? Okay, and made him forswear his allegiance to God, which were the three of the specific restrictions of one who was a Nazirite and had the special privilege of being consecrated directly to God. At the end of this particular section, then the narrative continues. Vadaber Adonai el Moshe lemor. Adonai said to Moses, Daber el Aharon ve'el banav lemor. Speak specifically to Aaron and his sons, and say to them, Ko tevarchu et bnei Yisrael emor lahem. This is the formula. These are the words by which you will, or these are the words that you will utter over the children of Israel by saying to them these familiar words again. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha. May Adonai bless you and keep you. Yo'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. May Adonai make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May Adonai lift up his presence upon you and grant you peace, grant you shalom. And then the following words which are not included in the blessing that one gives to another. V'samu et shmi al b'nei Yisrael v'ani avarchem. God says to Moses to relay to Aaron and his sons, lest they misunderstand this command. They shall place my name on the children of Israel by reciting this formula. Va'ani avarchem, but actually it's I, God. It's I who am doing the blessing. They're just the mouthpiece for the blessing that I give to the children of Israel. After our concluding blessing and after we roll the Torah, then here's story number 2. Or I'm just going to prepare you for it, then I'll introduce it, and Ruth Ann will set up the YouTube for us to watch about this blessing as well. So this concludes our Torah reading from the portion of Naso.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher natan lanu Torah emes v'hayei olam notah b'sachenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. So you want to still do it here?
Yeah, I can still.
That's what wasn't good. Please rise as we honor the Torah. V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe Lifnei b'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe al shlosha devarim al shlosha devarim haolam omer al shlosha devarim al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, haolam omer. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim. Please be seated. So I gave story number 1. Story number 2, in the spring, again, this time of the year, but now in Detroit rather than Cleveland, in 2016 was my retirement from Temple Kolami, where I still serve as Rabbi Emeritus, but it was the last time that I would be leading services as the senior rabbi of congregation, where I had been for 30 years. And there was a celebration for the congregation, and we had invited a friend of mine. Michael Isaacson was from the previous generation, but now the generation of new liturgical composers is a woman by the name of Perry Smilo. Some of you may have heard of Perry. She's a Massachusetts girl. Okay, got that. She lives in Jersey now, but she's a Massachusetts girl. And Perry is married to a fella whose name I have mentioned to you occasionally, Bud Mishkin. And if the name does sound familiar, it's because he's a commentator on NPR. So you may have heard Bud Mishkin's name. They're married, but Perry is a friend. And Perry was invited to come in and help with services, as well as do a little musical concert at the dinner that marked my retirement as senior rabbi of Temple Kolami. And she asked, since it was the Torah portion, the same Torah portion of Naso, she asked if at the end of the evening my whole family could come up onto the stage with her, and she would add her musical blessing for Rabbi Roman at the end of his career in Detroit, along with my family. Now this is in English. Perry wrote this in English. It is sung not only by her, sung around the country in synagogues and churches, and I thought you might enjoy hearing this interpretation as well.
May God bless you with all good. May God keep all evil from you. And may God fill your heart with wisdom and grace you with all truth. May God lift up God's merciful face and shine on you for all time. And may God grant you eternal peace. May God bless you with all good. May God keep all evil from you. And may God fill your heart with wisdom and grace you with all truth. May God lift up God's merciful face and shine on you for all time. And may God grant you eternal peace. Eternal peace.
And we join in blessing each other and thinking of those who are ill, those who are alone, those who are suffering, hospitalized. We give blessings and prayers on behalf of those who care for us in our pain, in our loneliness. We ask God to bless all with refuat hanefesh, refuat haguf, complete renewal of body and spirit. Before we join in singing Debbie Friedman's interpretation of the Misha Berach prayer, you'll find the words in the middle of page 253. Our tradition is that we include in our thoughts and prayers those of our loved ones and friends whose names appear on our Misha Berach list. We think of Chris Anderson, Susan Scheller-Arsht, Les Baki, Harvey Beam, Helen Bellinger, Sarah Benish, Fred P. Blumenthal, Arlene Brody, Brian Clendenin, Joyce Cohn, Glenn Destacamanto, Carol DeVore, Dennis Durante, John Evans, Jane Fain, Jerry Fain, Nancy Feldman, Helene Fields, Daniel Fine, Bill Forstott, Jeffrey Saul Gervan, Hal Gilbert, Teresa Goodman, Warren Gratis, Neil Grant, Ron Grant, Rosalind Greenberg, Shelley Hassel, Bill Hausman, Mike Holleran, Maureen Holleran, James Hudson, Stacy Leach, Farron Libson, Fred Legatt and Joe Legatt, Ricky Latout, David Liebling, George Morris, Sid Moss, Gail Norton, Yolanda Phillips, Eric Rottenberg, Lynn Roman, Laurie Sherman, Avraham Raphael ben Shoshana, Sprinze Yehudit bat Rivka Malka, Zissel Chana bat Rivka Malka, Harav Ilan David ben Dresha Fruma, Merle Sobel, Arlene Spiegel, Diane Stern, Lynn Stolzer, Steve Stolzer, Amy Storer, Alice Tannenbaum, Maynard Telpner, Sally Telpner, Gary Thiel, Laura Unger, and Wanda Wolofsky. Are there others whose names anyone would wish to add, please, as our thoughts are with them?
Helen Rousseau.
Joanne Field.
For all, refuat hanefesh, refuat haguf, renewal of body and spirit. We join together, middle of page 253. Mi sheberach avoteinu mikor habracha laimoteinu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Isheberach imoteinu Mekor habracha lavoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Page 256, we rise to honor the Torah. Yehalelu et Shem Adonai ki nisgav shemo levado. Let us praise the name of Adonai. God's name alone is exalted. Hodo al eretz v'shamayim vayarem keren le'amo tehila lechol Chasida Livnei Yisrael Am Kerovo. Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Etz Chaim hi lemachazikim ba v'tomcheha meyushar Teracheha darchei noam v'chol netivoteha shalom. Hashiveinu Adonai elecha v'nashuva chadesh chadesh yameinu chadesh yameinu k'kedem. Be seated. So one last story. 2 weeks ago tomorrow, I had what for me was a very, very moving moment. And it was the third time in my career that this has occurred. I stood under the chuppah with a bride and groom. The bride I had only met, and incidentally, to continue, she's a New Jersey girl too, but that's all right. The bride I had only met in Zoom encounters over 2 years as we prepared for the wedding that was delayed once or twice because of the COVID situation. They're both residents, the bride and groom, they're residents at two different hospitals in Massachusetts. On the groom's side, however, I had officiated at his parents' wedding. I didn't do the cutting, but I officiated and named him at his bris. I was the rabbi at his bar mitzvah, confirmation at age 16, and now I stood with him under the chuppah as he became a chatan, a chosen, a groom. And I left out one other aspect of Stephen's life. I stood with him many times at his hospital bed as he fought pediatric cancer and survived, and dedicated his life to becoming a pediatric oncologist. Got to the end of the ceremony when, in addition to reciting the words of the priestly benediction to bride and groom, and I asked them to hold their hands, and I bless them and I bless those who love them and those who have raised them to such a happy moment. I found myself literally unable to say the words of blessing to include a life filled with good health. And it's the third time that I've been privileged to share those words, these words of blessing, the words of blessing that God gave through Moses and then Aaron and the priests on through the chain of tradition down to this rabbi who first could do so in 1975, and to this day, or at least 2 weeks ago tomorrow, still privileged to recite them in God's name. For most of us, however, when we hear the word or the phrase, God bless you, especially we're thinking of during allergy season, right? And after all the sneezes, okay? So easily said when someone we care about, or even a stranger who we hear. This just occurred to me the other day as well. I sneezed and someone from far away on the other side of wherever it was called out, God bless you. The origin of the phrase in that sense is that we are grateful that the one whom we are blessing, his or her breath has been restored. We're hopeful that illness is not coming near. And we say those words, God bless you, Gesundheit if you prefer, La Briut in Hebrew for health. We say the words without hesitation. We say them usually with a smile, if not joy and glee. And yet those words, as we've heard not only in the Torah and not only in Perry Smilo's musical interpretation, in almost any other context, to say God bless you adds some kind of a sense of importance, of holiness, of significance. And I recognize that whenever I recite the words as a rabbi. Many Jews have said to me, it just doesn't feel Jewish. Who am I to be saying to someone else, God bless you, under any circumstances? So here are the words again. The Lord spoke to Moses, to Aaron and his sons. Thus shall you bless the people Israel. May God bless you and protect you. May God shine light upon you and be gracious to you. May God lift up the Eternal's face on you, grant you peace. Thus shall they link my name with the people Israel, and I will bless them. God tells Moses to have Aaron and his sons bless the people using the language of an individual. It's in a singular form. For centuries, those words have been central to Jewish worship and liturgy. transforming the ways in which Jews offer blessings to one another. Priests to the community, those leading the repetition of the Amidah to whom they are praying, rabbis celebrating special moments of life, as I mentioned, parents to children on Shabbat and Yom Tov on holidays. Every day, those words express dream and the heart of warm wishes and personal sentiment that Jews have for one another. That threefold benediction, some call it the priestly blessing, Pirgat Kohanim, stands out as one of the most famous and unique statements in all of the Torah. Each line is a little bit longer than the previous. There are 3, 5, and 7 words, respectively. And of course, the Hasidic rabbis point out the two additional words in each blessing represent me and God. Each contain a very personal name of God. And only after the pronouncement of all of the blessing, after people blessed other people, only then did it become God's role to bless the people. It's like on Yom Kippur. We ask forgiveness for all those humans whom we have wronged, and then we ask forgiveness of God. And the forgiveness and the atonement comes. Furthermore, as we continue reading in the Torah, we come to the very next verse. On the day that Moses finished setting up the tabernacle, the Aron, the Mishkan, he anointed and consecrated it and all of its furnishings. People blessing people not only invoke God's presence and blessing, but it's a prelude to the readiness of the temple to become a place of offering and holiness. So just what was it about this threefold blessing that held such power over God, that had the ability to invoke God to act, and becomes the prelude to meaning and prominence of the temple, or every time that a rabbi, or any time that any one of the Kohanim, of the priests, or anyone, even with a simple blessing after a sneeze? What is it about those words, God bless you? The Midrash explains that when the priests aspired to bless the people, God endorsed their efforts, and God participates in the blessing, deeming it more authentic than a priestly effort. So it's not just the simple phrase, God bless you, when someone sneezes. It's really saying, may God bless you. May God be present for you. And may all that God represents, a sense of wholeness and wellness and peace, may that be part of you as well. God is transformed and God's actions impacted by one human being blessing another. God is motivated to bless when God sees each of us and hears each of us adding words of blessing to each other. Thus the people are linked with God and connected to the divine presence. One commentator suggests that God will lift up the divine presence, the face, towards Israel when each of us lift up our faces, which is a euphemism for smiling and expressing concern, respect, hope for each other. When we offer a blessing of another person, we are in some ways acknowledging that they matter, that we care about them. It's a step towards acceptance and tolerance. It's indeed worthy of challenging ourselves to find reasons more than just a sneeze to bless others. It's why I find so much meaning in telling you the stories of what those words of blessing and the moments of blessing have meant to me. So friends, I say, God bless you. Those words that perhaps we should be saying every day to as many people as we can. We can all benefit from greater tolerance, love, and respect of each other. We can all benefit from the prayers and the request for God's presence upon us. We can all benefit from a little bit more of God's blessing. And let us say, Amen. We continue with our words of Aleinu and then Memorial Kaddish, the bottom of page 282. 282. Again, the ark will be open. I invite you to rise if you are comfortable in doing so. The bottom of 282. Aleinu l'shabeach u'ladon hakol, v'teikenu la liotzer reishit, shelo asanu kigoyei haratzot, v'lo samanu kimishpechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gohor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachadim u'modim, Lifnei Melech Malchei Hamlachim Hakadosh Baruch Hu. 284. Shehu Noteh Shamayim v'Yosei Haaretz U'moshav Yekaro B'Shamayim Imam U'Shchinatu Zo B'Govei Meromim U'Eloheinu Eino Emet Malkeinu Efesulato Kakatu B'Torahato Liadata Hayom Hashevota Elevavecha Ki Adonai Hu Elohim Hashamayim Imam Ve'al Haaretz Mitachat Eno. 287. V'nehema v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz v'yom hahu yiyeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth. We think of our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked. They died al Kiddush Hashem, in the sanctification of God's name. Victims of natural disasters around the world, as well as innocent victims of senseless acts of hatred, terrorism, racism. Those who have given their lives in the service of forces of decency and democracy. Those of every race and nation whose lives have been a true blessing to humanity. We remember them. We honor them. We meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. As a holy community, in prayer and in faith, we think of loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, even during this past month or so. We think of Jim Dixon, Margot Heumann, Jordan Brooke Kaplan, Tim Orrock, Lawrence Vogel, and Pauline Levine Weiner. We remember those who died at this season in years past, as we mark the anniversary of their passing, their yortzeit. We think of Yaakov ben Yosef Fishner, Joan Berman, Mark Stephen Berman, Hope Cummins, Barry Fassman, Mark Feldman, Sonny Feugelman, Bud Heller, Kalman Cantor, Gracie Lopez, Dennis Nathan, Louis Palm, Denise Rutenberg, Robert Sassner, Gloria Schiffman, Shmario Zichri ben Zissel Chana v'Harav Ilan David, and Marilyn Tummins. We honor the memories of those whose anniversary of their death, their yortzeits, we honor, we remember them. We mark them during this month of Sivan. We think of Irene Belsky, Edward Bloom, Mary Cohn, Rebecca Feinstein, Rachel Gallitz, Gershon ben Zev Velea, Beatrice Goldstein, Norman Herman, Leslie Culloden, Marilyn Noodleman Kriegel, Ellis Crone, Saul Levine, Rose Leibson, Abraham Ringer, Kerry Rosenblatt, Esther Rosenstein, Max Schlacks, Jack Schwartz, May Shapiro, Daniel Stein, Rita Walden, Stephen Weig, Donald S. Weisbaum, and Harry Yellen. Are there others whose names anyone would wish to mention, please?
William Feldman,
William Feldman, please.
Grace Charbonneau.
Grace Charbonneau. We link these names recited aloud to those victims of the conflict in Ukraine, victims of terror amongst our brothers and sisters in the land of Israel, those who perished in the Holocaust, nameless of our people who have no one for whom to recite their Kaddish. Our tradition is to rise in sympathy with those who mourn, and on page 294, we recite words hallowed by centuries of faith. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, B'alma divrach hirutei v'amlich malchutei, B'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayei Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam olamei olmaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach, V'yitba'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, V'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shmei kudsha b'richu, La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, Da'amiran bi'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlom rabba min shemaya v'chayim, Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, Hu ya'aseh shalom, Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol b'nei Adam v'imru Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring comfort to those who are bereaved amongst us. May God, in answer to our prayers, bring peace to us, to all Israel, and to all humanity, to which we say, Amen. Please be seated. We'll have our concluding interpretation of Adon Olam, which is on page 321. This is not a contemporary interpretation. This is from the music is from the, I suppose it was a pen, of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, with Adon Olam added to his music. We'll wish each other Shabbat Shalom, and with thanks to those who participated in the worship and prepared our Kiddush reception, we'll make Kiddush and Motzi over on the side after we conclude. So Adon Olam with Mozart. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. A good Shabbos. God bless you.